Hi everyone! Today we're going to be making these super easy velvet pumpkins. They take like 5 minutes to make. The supplies you're going to want is some stretch velvet fabric, paper mache pumpkins, which you can find at craft stores usually all year round, but definitely in the fall season, a glue gun, some extra fine glitter in your preferred color, Mod Podge, and scissors. So get your stuff together and let's get started. Okay, so I have my X-Acto knife here, and I have my scissors for cutting the fabric, my paper mache pumpkin. It's a rather large size, but you can do smaller or larger if you prefer. I just got these at a craft store. And then I also have my velvet, my stretch velvet fabric. You want to make sure it has some stretch to it because that really helps the pumpkin get covered well and tightly. So the first thing we're going to do is just cut out the stem of the pumpkin with our X-Acto knife. Try and get it as close to the base of the stem as you can. And it's okay if it's not perfect. Mine's not perfect either. But you're just going to go around in a circle until it comes off. And make sure when you do it that as you get towards the end, you hold the top of the stem so that it doesn't accidentally fall down into the pumpkin because you may not be able to get it out. True story, happened to me. Okay, we're going to work with the stem in a few minutes, but for now go ahead and set it aside. And you should have something that looks like that with your pumpkin. So set your stem aside and go ahead and set your pumpkin aside, and we're going to cut our fabric out for our pumpkin. Obviously your amount of fabric is going to vary based on how big your pumpkin is, but you're going to want to lay it out, and you're going to want to make sure that you set your pumpkin in your fabric, on top of your fabric once you've laid it out, to get an idea for how much fabric you're going to need to make sure it gets covered. It's always good with this project to err on the side of more rather than less, because if you do less then you may not be able to get it covered and you'll have to start over and cut your fabric again. So go ahead and test that before you start cutting. Just kind of check it. And then of course you're going to go ahead and cut your fabric. It should cut pretty easy with any standard scissors here. Okay, so now comes the easy and fun part. Start with a corner of your fabric and tuck it into the center of the pumpkin, and then you want to just keep gathering it evenly around and tucking it into the center of the pumpkin with your finger. The first bit will go pretty easily, and then you'll have to kind of force it in a little bit more, which is good because that's going to hold it into place. As it gets thicker, it's going to keep the fabric in place by itself. You won't have to add glue or anything. And just keep tucking. If it starts to kind of like bunch up in places, just grab that section where it's bunching and stuff it in further. That's where the stretch part of this fabric is going to become very handy, which is why I recommend using stretch velvet. And just keep tucking until we've got the initial essential amount of fabric into the center of the pumpkin. And then I like to use the back of my X-Acto knife and kind of grab the fabric with it and shove it in until you start to see the shape of the pumpkin really come out more, to where it doesn't just look like a ball of fabric. You actually see the shape of the pumpkin and the outline coming through the fabric underneath. Pull those pieces that are kind of bunching up there. You see I have some that bunch up, and I just kind of tug at it until I get that excess fabric going inside the pumpkin. And just keep doing that till you're satisfied with the tightness of the fabric on top of the paper mache pumpkin. So I'm just finishing this up here, and I'm pretty happy with how tight my velvet is now. You're going to see the contours of the pumpkin are now showing through, which is good. That's what we're aiming for, so it looks like a pumpkin, not just a bunch of fabric. So make sure you get it nice and tight so you can see the contours of your pumpkin. And then we're going to move on to finishing it with the stem. So go ahead and get your supplies for your stem, which is your Mod Podge, glitter, and the stem piece, of course, and you'll need a brush. I'm just using regular Mod Podge and extra fine gold glitter. You can use a different color if you wish, but try to use extra fine because it's going to stick better to the stem and it's not going to shed all over your pumpkin as much. And you'll need a brush, of course. So what you do is you just open up your Mod Podge and you're going to, dip your brush in. And when you do this, you want to make sure you're fairly generous with it so that the glitter is going to stick really well. I usually just stick my finger in the open part of the stem and then brush the Mod Podge on. Like I said, try to be a little generous. You don't want the Mod Podge dripping off, but you want it thick enough that the glitter is really going to stick and hold well. Then just open up your glitter and start sprinkling. Try and make sure you're covering all of the stem very well and generous with your glitter. Be overly generous with your glitter. I have a plate underneath to catch my excess glitter. And you can kind of tap it and shake the stem a little bit as you go to get that excess to fall off so that it doesn't shed on your pumpkin when you go to glue it down. So get it all covered up, and then you're going to have to let this dry before you actually glue it down. So that's probably the longest part of this whole tutorial, is you're going to have to wait a few minutes to let the stem dry. But other than that, it's super quick to do. These pumpkins are super quick to do. And when your stem has dried for a few minutes, then you're just going to add a generous amount of hot glue along the base. Try to be super generous with it here so that it's going to stick to the fabric well. And press it down to the middle of your pumpkin. And you might notice a little bit of glue kind of oozes out, and I just wait a second for the glue to kind of dry, and then before it completely dries, I swipe my finger to get that excess off so that you don't see it and it doesn't look tacky or anything. You can use a paper towel or something if you don't want to use your finger. And just make sure you hold it for a moment, and then you're all done. That's how quick and easy these are, and you can make a bunch of them in different sizes for your fall decor. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching.